Three terms. Race is defined as a group of people categorized by their physical appearances. So basically in this country, how you look and even more, the color of your skin dictates what race you are. Racism is more of a cognitive thing as well as prejudice. Racism is the belief that people that look like me are better than people that look like you. It's a superiority, inferiority dynamic there. Prejudice represents the prejudgments and the assumptions that you have about a person based upon the way they look. So people that look like you are fill in the blank. Discrimination is basically the unfair distribution of resources, accesses, and opportunities. And so when a person is being discriminated against, what that basically means is because of how they look, society is dictating how much and how frequently and how deeply they can access certain opportunities and resources. Systemic discrimination is what you get when you get a group of individual races in one organization, one institution, one community, and their racist biases and their racist perspectives, either consciously or subconsciously, begin to manipulate the practices of an organization. And so it can be covertly expressed, it can be overtly expressed, but sooner or later, everybody in America who's been conditioned, you get them in one place to be conditioned to be racist, you get them in one place, they're going to slowly but surely impact what goes on in that setting. Now, what is stress? Stress is something that we all experience from time to time. Stress is that internal feeling that you have when you feel like something can be taken from you or withheld. So if you're a student and you have an A in your biology class and your teacher says, tomorrow or Friday you have an exam over chapters 2, 3, and 4. Well, if you're a student with an A, that's going to produce stress because that exam has the ability to take away your A. If you're at home and you get a letter in the mail from your mortgager saying that, hey, you're 2 months behind and we're going to take your house, you're going to experience stress because something you have can be taken away. So thinking about race and racism and discrimination, Black people experience what's called race-related stress, meaning because of how I look, things can be taken away from me or withheld from me, whether it's my rights, whether it's my freedom, whether it's my dignity. Those things at any given moment, because of how I look, can be taken. And so what happens is, in the Black culture, we somehow, for whatever reason, walk around with a certain level of stress just because of how we look. People now, why do Black males die so early? All this, it makes sense to me. It's because you already walk around with a level of stress that the rest of society doesn't even have just because of how you look. So when you're dealing with race-related stress, you have to have a way to cope with it. I won't read those definitions, but coping basically means the psychological processes you do to suppress the stress and just not go crazy. Avoiding coping and emotion-based coping is considered maladaptive, meaning the results of that type of coping is going to hurt you in the long run emotionally and mentally. Whereas solution-focused coping, the ability to attack a situation, attack a task, and conquer it, is better for you mentally and emotionally. Doing work with ABO, at the end of every semester, we do a focus group. And almost every time when we talk about what are your greatest concerns, they all, as it relates to achieving your academic goals, the fear of failure is huge. And it makes sense to have fear of failure when you live in a society that's not built to help you be successful. A lot of Black males anticipate catastrophe. They have a reoccurring sense of detachment, preoccupied with their weaknesses. They have a lost sense of direction, chronic pessimism. They make excuses. They devalue success, avoid responsibility, and self-sabotage. Self-sabotage is when you have a responsibility. This is something I have to do, but I'm going to create a problem that then removes me from my responsibility. And so what happens slowly but surely, coping is used to deal with race-related stress. And so the more I invest as a Black male, the more time and effort I put into something, the formula works like this. If I put a lot of effort into something, I'm going to have more stress because society can, at the end of the day, withhold what I deserve. And so what happens is Black males begin to function consciously and subconsciously with this formula. The less I have to lose, the less stress I'm going to have. And so what happens at the end of the day, it's called C.A.N.T culture. C.A.N.T culture is basically all of the maladaptive coping styles that Black males use around the country. They come together to produce a culture. And so C.A.N.T stands for a cognitive and affective negativity template, meaning the way my schema works as it relates to filtering reality and filtering my life, it's a disempowering way. it sees the negative and it feels the negative and it responds in a counterproductive manner. So again, collective maladaptive coping equals a culture of failure, a culture of underachievement. This is how C.A.N.T culture thinks. I kind of talked about fear of failure, chronic pessimism, present-oriented, difficulty, delaying gratification, controlling impulses. This is how they feel, powerless, helpless, hopeless, as it relates to achieving American success in the traditional American way. Avoid responsibility, withdrawal, avoid goals, no long-term planning. If you take away American racism, C.A.N.T culture would keep itself existing. If you eliminate C.A.N.T culture and start from scratch, American racism would regenerate that culture. And so it's fed from different directions and they sustain each other.